"She's not my aunt," the boy cried out, struggling against the woman's grip. "She took me from the children's home. She hurts me at night." The crowd froze in shock, and before anyone could react, Lance Corporal Daniel Harford threw down his rifle and rushed toward the kid. Was he able to protect that innocent little boy? Before we reveal the full story, hit the subscribe button and drop a comment below telling us where in the world you're watching from. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. The late June sun beat down on Buckingham Palace as tourists gathered along the barriers. Lance Corporal Daniel Harford maintained his legendary stillness, the scarlet of his uniform absorbing the summer warmth while his face betrayed nothing. 8 years in the Royal Regiment had taught him that ceremonial duty required more than physical endurance. It demanded a specific type of awareness. While most visitors assumed the guards saw nothing, Daniel had perfected the art of observing everything while appearing to observe nothing. Through his peripheral vision, Daniel catalogued the typical tourist scene before a pair instantly registered as different. A woman in her mid-30s, expensively dressed with carefully styled blonde hair, gripping the shoulder of a boy who couldn't be more than 8. Unlike other children who strained against parents' hands, eager to get closer to the guards, this boy moved with unusual caution, his shoulders hunched inward. "Isn't this exciting, Eli?" the woman, Claire, said, her voice carrying artificial brightness that Daniel recognized from interrogation resistance training, the tone people used when they knew others were listening. The boy, Eli, nodded without enthusiasm, eyes downcast. Despite the sweltering heat that had most tourists in shorts and t-shirts, he wore long sleeves and jeans. A thin sheen of sweat glistened on his forehead, yet he made no complaint about the inappropriate clothing. As they moved closer, Daniel noticed Claire's hand slide from the boy's shoulder down his back, lingering in places where casual touch wouldn't normally remain. Eli's subtle flinch triggered the same instinctive alarm that had once saved Daniel's unit during a night patrol in Helmand Province. The recognition that something fundamental was wrong. When the crowd shifted, bringing them directly into his line of sight, Daniel caught his first clear view of Eli's face. While his expression remained carefully neutral, Daniel recognized the divided attention of someone constantly calculating risk, the same hypervigilance he'd seen in civilians in conflict zones. When Claire's attention briefly shifted to her phone, the mask slipped momentarily from the boy's face, revealing a flash of resignation that no child should know. As Eli turned slightly, his high collar shifted, revealing a cluster of red scratches disappearing beneath the fabric, the deliberate pattern of adult fingernails. Daniel's military training had included recognizing signs of torture and abuse, knowledge unmistakable regardless of context. Claire guided Eli through the crowd with a hand that never broke contact with his body. "Stay close, sweetheart," she murmured, the endearment carrying an unmistakable warning. "Remember, our special day out depends on you being a good boy." Eli nodded with mechanical precision. When he turned to look at the palace, his collar shifted again, revealing more pronounced scratches along his neckline. "You've been so good today," Claire announced loudly enough for nearby tourists to hear as she retrieved an ice cream from her designer bag. "I think you've earned that treat I promised." The calculated nature of the gesture wasn't lost on Daniel, a public demonstration of generosity establishing her as a caring guardian. Eli accepted it with mumbled thanks, eyes darting nervously to her face. As he began eating, Claire leaned down, whispering something that made him freeze momentarily, swallowing hard before nodding. Her hand returned to his neck, fingers curling possessively into his hair. "Isn't this wonderful, Eli? A proper British experience, just like I promised." When her fingers tightened, using the grip to steer him closer to the barrier, Eli's eyes briefly closed. A child's attempt to escape what couldn't physically be avoided. A tourist bumped against them, causing Eli to stumble. Claire's reaction was immediate and disproportionate, pulling him against her with such force that the ice cream crushed against his chest. Rather than showing concern for the stain, her fingers dug into his side in what appeared to be a stabilizing gesture, but made him stiffen with pain. "Clumsy boy," she said, with a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "We'll clean you up in a moment." Her hand moved from his waist to his lower back, then lower still, lingering in places that made Daniel's jaw tighten behind his ceremonial mask. Eli's response was telling, not pulling away or complaining, but a dissociative stillness that Daniel recognized from combat trauma briefings. His eyes took on the distant focus of someone retreating into an internal safe space, while his body endured unwanted contact. An elderly couple had been observing with increasing concern. The woman moved deliberately closer. "Such a warm day for long sleeves," she commented casually, offering Eli a gentle smile. "My grandson can't bear anything but t-shirts in this weather." Claire's arm tightened around Eli's shoulders. "He has sensitive skin," she replied smoothly. "Burns easily in the sun. Don't you, darling?" Eli nodded on cue. "Yes, Aunt Claire." "Your nephew is very well behaved," the elderly woman continued. "Most boys his age would be climbing the barriers by now." "I've raised him properly," Claire answered with practiced modesty. "Discipline and structure are so important for children." While they talked, the elderly woman's husband positioned himself behind them, his phone angled in a way that suggested he was documenting rather than simply taking tourist photos. A young mother with 2 children moved nearby, her eyes narrowing as she observed Claire's hand sliding down Eli's back again. "Excuse me," she interrupted. "My son has the same dinosaur on his shoes. Do you like dinosaurs too?" The question, directed specifically to Eli, created uncertainty. The boy glanced at Claire for permission. He began hesitantly. "He's more interested in history than dinosaurs," Claire intercepted. "That's why we're here seeing the guards. Isn't that right, Eli?" "Yes, Aunt Claire," came the automatic response, though Daniel caught the brief flicker of confusion in the boy's eyes. As they moved through the crowd, a tour guide's voice carried just enough for those nearby. "If you see something concerning involving a child, the palace security office is located at the east entrance. The staff are trained to respond to safeguarding concerns." Claire's posture stiffened. Her hand moved from Eli's back to his upper arm, fingers gripping with renewed intensity as she scanned the crowd with sudden wariness. Behind them, the elderly couple exchanged glances with the young mother, a silent communication of shared concern. The mother discreetly removed her phone, her thumb moving across the screen in what appeared to be a message rather than casual browsing. "I think I heard someone mention calling security," a teenage girl whispered loudly to her friend. Whether intentional or coincidental, the comment had an immediate effect. "We should move closer to see the changing ceremony," Claire announced, steering Eli through the crowd with new urgency. She navigated toward the front of the crowd, pulling Eli directly in front of Daniel's position. "Look, sweetheart," she announced loudly. "This guard is much more handsome than the ones in the pictures I showed you." Daniel maintained his forward stare, but his peripheral vision tracked every detail. The way Eli's shoulders remained tensed, how the boy's eyes briefly met his before darting away in learned caution. "Go on," Claire urged, pushing Eli forward. "You wanted to see a real royal guard up close." Her hand slid to the nape of his neck, fingers curling into his hair in what appeared affectionate, but functioned as control. Eli nodded silently, eyes fixed on the polished buttons of Daniel's uniform. "You can talk to him," Claire prompted. "He won't answer, of course. That's part of their tradition. They never respond, no matter what you say." The emphasis she placed on these last words carried a subtle warning. When Eli remained silent, Claire leaned down, her lips close to his ear. "Don't be shy," she whispered, loud enough for Daniel to hear. "Remember what we practiced? Go ahead, or our special time together tonight will have to include consequences." Eli swallowed visibly before taking a hesitant step closer. "Hello, sir," he began, the formal address incongruous from a child so young. Aunt Claire says you fought in wars before becoming a guard. From his position, Daniel could now see details invisible to most. The faint bruising at Eli's jawline, partially concealed by the high collar, the slight tremor in his small hands. Claire beamed with apparent pride, but her fingers remained firmly entwined in his hair. "Go on," she encouraged. "Tell him the other thing you wanted to ask." The boy turned back to Daniel, his voice dropping lower. "Aunt Claire lets me sleep in her bed when I'm good. She says it's our special secret." Daniel's military training had included maintaining composure under extreme stress, but nothing in combat had prepared him for the cold fury these words triggered. His expression remained perfectly neutral, while his mind calculated response scenarios with tactical precision. Claire smiled with satisfaction. "See? I told you the guards never react to anything. It's impressive discipline, isn't it?" Daniel caught fragments of concerned whispers from nearby tourists. A security officer in plain clothes had begun moving casually through the crowd, responding to what must have been reports from concerned visitors. Noticing this approach, Claire checked her watch with exaggerated concern. "Oh, look at the time! We're going to be late for our tour bus if we don't hurry." Her hand returned to Eli's shoulder, fingers digging in with renewed urgency. "Say goodbye to the guards, sweetheart. We need to go right now." Eli looked up at Daniel one last time, his eyes conveying silent desperation that cut through ceremonial duty, straight to the core of the soldier beneath the uniform. Something shifted in the boy's expression, a decision forming behind the fear. Claire began steering him away, her movements taking on new urgency. "Come along now," she insisted with forced cheerfulness. "We don't want to miss our bus." Eli took 2 reluctant steps before suddenly planting his feet. "I don't want to go," he said, barely audible. "Don't be silly," Claire replied, her smile fixed but her eyes hardening. "Remember what I promised for later?" A social worker nearby called to a palace staff member. "I believe there might be a situation developing with that child." Claire's head snapped toward her with barely concealed panic. Her fingers dug deeper into Eli's shoulder. "We're leaving. Now." Something broke in Eli's carefully maintained facade. "She's not my aunt," he declared, his voice suddenly strong enough to carry to those nearby, his eyes locked with Daniel's. "She took me from the children's home 3 weeks ago. She said she was from the adoption agency." The crowd stilled, conversations halting as attention focused on the small boy and the woman whose face had drained of colour. "She makes me do things at night," Eli continued, words tumbling out. "She hurts me when I say no. She said nobody would believe me because I'm just an orphan and she's a respectable lady." Claire's composed facade shattered. "You ungrateful little liar," she hissed, grabbing his arm with bruising force. "After everything I've done for you, taking you in when nobody wanted you." She yanked him violently toward her, nearly lifting him off his feet. "We're leaving right now, and when we get home—" The threat remained unfinished but hung in the air. "Help me," Eli cried out, eyes fixed on Daniel. "Please, she's not my aunt. I'm scared of what she'll do." Claire's face contorted with rage. "Shut up!" she snarled, all pretense abandoned as she began dragging Eli through the stunned crowd. "You're disrupting the guard's duty. That's a crime." The plainclothes security officer was still several people away. Eli struggled against Claire's grip, his small body twisting as he tried to break free, but her superior strength kept him firmly in her control. It was in this frantic moment that Lance Corporal Daniel Harford made a decision that would alter multiple lives forever. 8 years of military discipline, centuries of regimental tradition, and the sacred duty of ceremonial guard, all balanced against a child's desperate plea. The crack of his boots against stone shattered the ceremonial silence as Daniel stepped forward. In one fluid motion born of combat training, he grasped his rifle by the barrel and deliberately set it aside against the sentry box. An act so unprecedented that tourists gasped audibly, cameras swinging toward him in disbelief. 3 swift strides brought him to the barrier, which he vaulted with precision. The crowd scattered before him, creating a direct path to Claire, who had frozen in shock. Her momentary hesitation gave Eli the chance to wrench against her grip, though she recovered quickly. "Release the boy! Now!" Daniel's voice carried the full authority of his military command, the first words he had spoken during his entire duty shift. The ceremonial guard tourists thought of as decorative had transformed into a soldier with combat-hardened reflexes, moving with lethal focus. Claire recovered from her initial shock. "This is absurd," she declared loudly, addressing the gathering crowd. "This is my nephew having a tantrum because he doesn't want to leave." Daniel continued his approach. "I heard what the boy said, and I've been watching you since you arrived." Claire's grip on Eli's arm tightened to white-knuckled intensity. "This is none of your business. You have no authority here. Get back to your post." "Palace grounds. Queen's regiment. That gives me all the authority I need." His focus remained locked on her hands where they gripped Eli's arm. "Last warning. Release the boy." "He's confused," Claire insisted, voice rising as she addressed the surrounding tourists. "Tell them, Eli. Tell them I'm your aunt and you're just upset about leaving." Eli remained silent, his eyes fixed on Daniel with desperate hope. When Claire shook him roughly, demanding a response, tears spilled down his cheeks. "I've seen the bruises," Daniel stated flatly. "The scratches. Heard what he said about your special time together. Release him. Now." Claire's expression contorted with rage and calculation. "You're making a terrible mistake. Do you know who I am? My brother is on the city council. There will be consequences for this harassment." "The only consequence that matters is the one facing you right now," Daniel replied, closing the final distance. "Let him go." When Claire's fingers only tightened further, causing Eli to whimper in pain, something shifted in Daniel's controlled demeanour. Without warning, his arm shot forward with combat-trained precision, the flat of his palm connecting with Claire's cheek in a slap that echoed across the stunned courtyard. The force of the blow caused her to stagger sideways, her grip on Eli breaking. The moment he was free, the boy darted behind Daniel, small hands clutching the back of his scarlet tunic. Claire steadied herself, one hand pressed against her reddened cheek, eyes wide with shock that quickly transformed to outrage. "You struck me! That's assault! I'll have your job for this!" "What you've done to this child is the crime here," Daniel responded, his voice carrying for all to hear, the scratches on his neck, the bruises hidden under long sleeves in summer heat, the special time in your bed. Sexual predators like you rely on people looking the other way. Not today. Claire shifted to a victim's stance. "I don't know what you're talking about," she countered, forcing a tremor into her voice. "Eli, sweetheart, come here. This man is frightening me." The boy's fingers only tightened in Daniel's uniform, his face pressed against the guard's back. "Nobody is believing your act anymore," Daniel stated flatly. "Palace security is already here, and Metropolitan Police are on their way." With unexpected suddenness, Claire lunged forward, hand outstretched toward Eli. "You ungrateful little liar! After everything I've done for you!" Daniel intercepted her movement with military efficiency, but this time his response carried none of the restraint of his first intervention. His open palm struck her face with such force that she spun completely around before collapsing to the stone pavement. Blood trickled from her ear as she struggled to push herself upright. "Stay down," Daniel commanded, his voice carrying unmistakable authority. "If you try to approach this child again, what follows won't be a slap." Claire spat blood onto the stones, hatred replacing the calculated charm that had masked her true nature. "You've ruined everything," she snarled. "He's nothing, a throwaway nobody wanted. He should be grateful for my attention." Her words echoed in the horrified silence. Phones recorded her confession. Witnesses exchanged glances of disgust, and several people moved protectively closer to Daniel and Eli. Palace security personnel converged on the scene, their initial confusion at seeing a Queen's Guard out of position quickly replaced by professional focus. 2 officers moved to secure Claire, while a third approached Daniel with cautious respect. "Lance Corporal," the security officer addressed him formally, "we've received multiple reports about this situation. Metropolitan Police have been notified and are en route." Behind Daniel, Eli continued trembling, his small body pressed against the guard's back. When a female security officer approached, extending her hand, he shrank further away. "It's all right," Daniel said softly, the gentleness in his voice a stark contrast to the military authority he'd displayed moments earlier. "I'm not going anywhere." A commotion at the edge of the crowd heralded the arrival of a guard captain, moving with purposeful strides toward the centre of the disturbance. Claire's face brightened with vindictive hope at the sight of the superior officer. "Finally," she declared loudly, "someone who understands discipline and protocol. This guardsman abandoned his post and assaulted me. I demand he be punished immediately." The guard captain surveyed the scene with practiced efficiency before approaching his subordinate. "Lance Corporal Harford, I've been informed of the situation." "Sir," Daniel acknowledged, with a crisp nod, "I take full responsibility for breaking protocol. The child was in immediate danger." Claire's triumphant expression began to falter as the guard captain showed no sign of the outrage she clearly expected. Instead, he moved closer, deliberately positioning himself to block her view of Eli. "I heard what you did," the captain stated, "and if anyone tries to reprimand you for this, they'll answer to me personally. Some duties transcend protocol, Lance Corporal." Claire's face contorted with shocked disbelief. "This is absurd. He struck me. Twice." "Indeed, there are witnesses," the captain replied without acknowledging her directly. "And based on the reports already flooding palace security, those same witnesses observed you physically and psychologically abusing a child for the past hour." A palace staff member approached with a shock blanket, offering it tentatively toward Eli. The boy flinched away, pressing himself more firmly against Daniel's back. "It's all right," Daniel said softly. "No one is going to separate us until you feel safe." The guard captain nodded in approval. "You should take the rest of the day, Harford. I'll have a substitute cover your position. The boy needs stability right now, and you're the one he's chosen to trust." Metropolitan Police had arrived. Claire made one last desperate attempt. "He's lying! The boy has behavioural problems. Check his records at the children's home. He makes up stories for attention." Her outburst drew cold stares from witnesses, several of whom stepped forward offering their phones with recorded evidence. The elderly couple who had first noticed the concerning behaviour approached a police officer, explaining how they documented the inappropriate touching. Through this chaos, Eli remained silent, his face pressed against Daniel's uniform. When a female police officer tried to approach, he shrank away. "I need to ask him some questions," she explained to Daniel. "Not yet," Daniel replied firmly. "He's in shock." "We need to establish," the officer began. "With respect," Daniel interrupted, "I've seen combat trauma. This child is displaying the same signs. Questioning him now risks additional psychological damage." The guard captain stepped in. "Lance Corporal Harford has specialised training in trauma response from his military service. I recommend following his assessment for now." After a brief consultation, the officer nodded. "We'll need a statement soon, but it can wait. Do you have somewhere appropriate to take him?" Daniel nodded. "My wife is a clinical psychologist specialising in childhood trauma. Our home is nearby." "Catherine Harford?" the officer asked with sudden recognition. "From the Royal Children's Mental Health Initiative." "The same," Daniel confirmed. This connection visibly shifted the officer's approach. "That's actually ideal. We'll need proper documentation, but having Dr. Harford involved could be tremendously beneficial for the child's immediate welfare. As Claire was escorted toward a police vehicle, she made one last effort, her voice a hiss meant only for Daniel and Eli. "This isn't over. You've made a powerful enemy today, soldier boy." Daniel turned to face her fully, his words carrying absolute certainty. "For you, it is completely over. Every moment of what you did is documented by witnesses. Every word you've spoken is recorded. And I will personally ensure that you never come near another child as long as you live." As she was led away, the guard captain turned to Daniel. "You should go now. Take the boy somewhere quiet. I'll handle the formalities here." Daniel nodded gratefully. "Sir, my uniform is exactly what that child needs to see right now," the captain finished. "The symbol of protection. Keep it on until he feels secure enough to let you out of his sight." Kneeling to Eli's level, Daniel spoke gently. "Would you like to come with me? My wife and I have a house not far from here. You'd be safe there." Eli's wary eyes studied Daniel's face. "She said she'd find me if I ever told anyone. She said no one would believe me." "I believed you," Daniel replied simply. "And I promise you, she will never come near you again." "Do you have to go back to guard duty after I leave?" Eli asked, his voice small. "Not today," Daniel assured him. "I'll stay with you as long as you need me to." For the first time, Eli's grip on Daniel's uniform loosened slightly. "Promise?" "Soldier's honor," Daniel replied, offering his hand. After a moment's hesitation, Eli's small fingers wrapped around 3 of Daniel's. The taxi pulled up before a Victorian townhouse in a quiet London neighbourhood. Inside, Catherine Harford stopped abruptly at the sight that greeted her. Her husband in full ceremonial uniform, hand in hand with a visibly traumatized child. Kate's professional training was evident in her immediate shift to calm assessment. She knelt down, bringing herself to Eli's eye level while maintaining enough distance to avoid triggering his defensive responses. "Hello," she said simply. "I'm Kate." Eli pressed closer to Daniel's side, his fingers tightening around the guard's hand. "This is Eli," Daniel explained. "He's had a very difficult day and needs a safe place to stay." As the afternoon progressed into evening, Eli gradually revealed details of his 3-week ordeal. How Claire had established control through rewards and punishments, how she'd convinced him no one was looking for him because the children's home was overcrowded, how she'd trained him to perform for public audiences with practiced responses. When the boy finally fell asleep on the sofa, exhausted by the emotional aftermath, Kate joined Daniel in the kitchen, their voices low. "Sexual abuse, physical abuse, psychological manipulation," she summarized, though the tension in her jaw betrayed her emotional response. Classic predatory grooming patterns. She was conditioning him for long-term exploitation. Daniel nodded grimly. "I've already spoken with my commanding officer. They're granting me compassionate leave for the next week." Kate's hand found his across the table. "You did the right thing today. Breaking protocol, the physical intervention, all of it." "What happens to him now, after the immediate investigation?" Kate's expression softened. "Most likely return to the children's home, followed by placement with a vetted foster family." "Unless," Daniel began, then paused, studying his wife's face carefully. "Unless there's an alternative," Kate finished, a silent communication passing between them. Conversations they'd had many times before about their shared desire to provide a home for children who had experienced trauma. "We're already cleared as emergency foster carers through your work with the Trauma Initiative," Daniel noted, "and we've completed most of the certification for adoption." 3 days later, the detective assigned to Eli's case arrived with Ms. Reynolds from Children's Services. Claire Morgan, though that's not her real name, has been formally charged with multiple serious offences, the detective explained. "The evidence against her is overwhelming and she'll remain in custody throughout the legal proceedings." "She can't get out?" Eli asked, fear evident in his voice. "She said she had important friends who would always help her." "Not this time," the detective assured him. The judge denied bail completely. Ms. Reynolds opened her briefcase. Normally, you would return to Oakwood Haven while we arranged a suitable foster placement. However, I understand the Harfords have applied for emergency fostering status specific to your case. Eli looked up with sudden hope. I can stay here with you and Mr. Daniel? That's what we're hoping, Kate confirmed, though her professional caution was evident. I've reviewed your qualifications extensively, Ms. Reynolds addressed both Harfords. Dr. Harford's expertise in childhood trauma and your existing certification create an unusually strong case. And, most importantly, Eli has formed a trust bond with both of you that would be damaging to sever at this stage of his recovery. There will be regular home visits and ongoing assessment, she continued, but I'm prepared to approve temporary placement with the Harfords, with potential for long-term fostering or even adoption if that becomes appropriate. Does that sound okay to you, Eli? Daniel asked gently. Would you like to stay with us for a while? The boy nodded, then hesitated. What if I have nightmares? Claire said I was too much trouble when I cried at night. Then we'll be there, Kate assured him simply. Nightmares are just your brain trying to make sense of scary things. They're nothing to be ashamed of. Mr. Daniel too? Eli asked. Absolutely, Daniel confirmed. That's what families do. They help each other through the hard parts. The word family hung in the air, its potential stretching before them, not as an instant solution or magical healing, but as a commitment to the long, complex journey of recovery that lay ahead. Later that evening, after Eli had fallen asleep, Daniel found Kate standing in the doorway, watching the boy's chest rise and fall in the peaceful rhythm of untroubled sleep. He didn't have a single nightmare last night, she observed quietly. That's significant progress already. Daniel nodded, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. He has a long way to go. We all do, Kate replied, leaning into his embrace. But we'll go together. As they stood watching over the sleeping child, who had so unexpectedly entered their lives, the future stretched before them. Not with the certainty of fairy tales, but with the genuine promise of healing that comes from finding safety after danger and family after loss. The broken protocol that had started their journey had led to something far more important than regimental tradition. It had created the possibility of wholeness for three people who had each in their own way been searching for completion. Would you step forward to protect a child if it meant breaking rules you've sworn to uphold? How many of us would recognise the subtle signs of abuse that Lance Corporal Harford spotted that day at Buckingham Palace? Sometimes the most important duty isn't to tradition or protocol, but to basic human decency and the protection of the vulnerable. The real strength of those who serve isn't just in standing guard, but in knowing when to step forward. If this story moved you, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more powerful Royal Guard stories. Don't forget to press the notification bell so you never miss our daily uploads. And then share this video with someone who should know about the warning signs of child abuse. Your awareness could help save a child in danger. Check out our previous videos appearing on your screen now. We'll see you tomorrow at this same time with another powerful Royal Guard story you won't want to miss.